I decided, since she's one of my absolute favorite humans in the whole wide world, and she's been giving everybody interviews about me, it's about time Alana Stott came back, because we are going through something, humans. And if you haven't been seeing all of my ranting and raving, whether it's about anti-trans stuff, or it's about the maid subject, or it's about death and murder, I have a flip coin, which is human trafficking, which most people don't realize is something I care about, which is insane. When I think about that, you should all care about human trafficking. And more importantly, there are some cases in the public right now that are, well, they're making waves globally. And the Diddy case is definitely one of them. And I wanted to bring Alana Stott back on because, and of everybody who is talking about human trafficking, the majority of people have no clue what they're saying. And it's about time we brought on somebody who is actually immersed in this subject every waking minute of her life, whether it's in Canada, the United States, or globally. So we thought, why not have a hard conversation?
Yeah.
Hi.
I always want to come back on. You just never give me a word in edgeways. So.
Oh, well, who says today's going to be any different, sweetheart?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So if people haven't seen your episode with me on any of the times you've been on the show, or they don't know about your amazing book, She Who Dares, or your children's book series, or about the fact that you're married to Ears, which is another special operator most of you guys have seen, the bald guy running around, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so, well, we're normally talking about in depth about me, so I'm really glad this one is not about me, but my background is very, very varied. From I've been a bank manager, I've been a debt collector, close protection, I run a security company, work in finance, but for the last, I guess, 25 years, I've been quite deeply immersed in the world of sexual abuse, trauma, survivors, and mainly in the human trafficking space. I'm normally, I guess, over the last 5 years, I've been slightly more vocal about it. Previous to that, it was just more in a very quiet, connecting the right people to the right places, the dots to the right dots, and trying to do as much as we can to have some sort of effect on what's happening here. It's really, really working because, we've gone from a $40 million a year industry to a $55 million a year industry, and they've now increased their profit by 100 billion in the last 10 years. So it's working well.
It's working well. It's like super, it's great. I had a quick conversation on the phone there right before we started with you with Alex Schadenberg about this, because there's a lot going on in Canada, and one of the things I think most people are globally unaware of is how much Canada and the United States border are trafficked, how much we have movements of children going in and out of Canada through, well, I mean, it's hard to believe that the government isn't aware of it at this point, because the numbers are so staggering at this point.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny. I was speaking to someone yesterday, and they were asking me where the most trafficking occurs in the world, and it's always a funny question, because generally people think it's in some far off land, some third world country. If you look at the stats, 1 in 150 people are trafficked in the world right now, and the biggest consumer is right here in America. So where are we getting the people from? I mean, domestically as well as internationally. Domestically is way easier to manage, and we've got state lines. And then when we've got borders like Mexico and Canada that are just there, it's very easy to work with. We saw in the last 4 years, 324,000, I think the last number was, kids came across the border facilitated by the government and placed in the hands of people that we have no idea where these kids have been put. So yes, governments are very much aware of what's going on, and politicians are aware, and police are aware, and it's a web that can't be untangled because too many people in power are involved.
So when you say our governments are consciously aware, I'm going to argue that the United States government, at least the head of it for a long time, wasn't aware, because apparently their entire system wasn't even aware that he had stage 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cancer. And that's just not true. And we know that. So when you're talking about governments being involved and governments being aware and police being aware, you say we can't untangle it. How do we have hope when not a single thing seems to be able to be done? Trafficking, whether it's trafficking, sex work, or otherwise, goes back to the oldest times as a form of life. I mean, as payment, as currency. Humans are currency, and they have been. It's no different than things like slavery. And there was a whole conversation that just happened on PragerU about this, where an individual was like, look, Black people don't want to admit that Black people also sold Black people. We don't want to admit that, white people sold white people. We don't want to really have the nitty gritty conversation. So how do we look at something like human trafficking and go, we can make dents in this? How do we stop it if the powers that be are so okay with it happening?
I think because most of us will use a form of convenient logic. So it's okay if, or maybe that's not classed as, or that doesn't work as. But when we stop seeing humans as real people, we've all heard people go, back in the day when what happened with 9/11, it was like, well, let's just bomb Afghanistan. Like, let's just kill all those people because they're not real people. And when we don't see people as real people, we have that. You're right. Slavery has been around since Mesopotamia. It's been around forever. We've used humans to trade as long as humans have existed. We know that now, though we didn't understand things back then, and we're meant to evolve, and we're meant to change, and we're meant to, but unfortunately it can go from, back then it was like, we'll trade a person for labor, or we'll trade a person for sex. That happened back then too. We'll trade a person for working in fields. We'll use child labor because they can work, their little hands can work better. Like, there's all these different excuses right up to today. We're now in the digital world of trafficking that people are just completely unaware of. We've got huge influencers out there that are literally recruiting young boys to teach them how to traffic women on the internet. And what do we mean by trafficking? We're looking at force, fraud, coercion. We're looking at act, means, purpose. It's very simple what the definitions of trafficking, and we're going to get into the Diddy case to talk about how that can be twisted. But if you're using someone to make profit for yourself by means of force, fraud, or coercion, you're trafficking someone. So, as an example, if you are purposely going out to look for girls to convince them that they're in love with you for the sole purpose of eventually getting them to be appearing on webcams so you can make money and you can keep that money that they are making, and you see them as a commodity, then you are a trafficker. Like, we can talk about the legalities of all the people that have spoke about this type of thing and how people are not doing anything wrong, and these women, if you're going out there with a premeditated intention of manipulating this person into doing something that's going to make you profit, especially when it is in the sex industry, which webcam, OnlyFans and things is in that industry. If somebody's using their body to make you money, then you're trafficking them.
Well, it's funny that you say that. And I was just pulling up, I wanted to pull something up because this is one of those situations that I think this applies to. And I know people could argue, the people are choosing this, they're deciding this, and this person's just help facilitating the deals. There's an individual that I saw not that long ago on Sean Kelly's show, and he has a show called Digital Social Hour. I mean, he's famous for doing 76 interviews a day. I've been on it as well. And then he posts 900,000 clips of people. But the thing that he brought this kid on, okay? I can't remember his name for the life of me. I'm looking for it right now because it's driving me nuts. Josh or John or something, Doherty or Anyway, what he is essentially is a young guy, and he manages and he gets a piece of people's deals like this. And he walks around with gold chains and fancy cars and does all these things, and he talks about it. And so he acts as a manager. So when you're seeing somebody do this, who's managing people's OnlyFans or managing their content creation, camming and stuff, would they be classified as somebody like a pimp?
So this is an agreement that's been reached by two people. And normally with things like the OnlyFans management teams and people like this, there's a legal team involved, there's people that come together. There's so many examples, and we saw it on the sports field as well, that people's likenesses and images, we worked on that, and we got that fixed because it was a form of enslaving people into what they have to do. So there's a reason like states like California have labor laws on how a talent agent can work and how a manager can work. We have laws in place to stop these abuses. So things like taking 50% of people's income, these types of things are unacceptable and they go against the labor laws. So if an agreement is being reached, if I approach somebody and says, I want to do OnlyFans, I need you to help manage it. You're going to be doing X, Y, and Z for services. I'm going to give you 20% of everything that I make. That's an agreed agreement. That person's making money. You're making money. It's all been agreed. Lawyers have signed off on it. Part of the contract is that you're signing up to say that you're agreeing to this. Bearing in mind, you have to be over 18 to be able to agree to a contract. So there's that too. That is complete, and a lot of people might say is a form of trafficking. I don't agree. I think that we've got a contract, we've made an agreement, we've gone into this with our eyes open. It's all good. It's when there's no agreement. It's when you're completely manipulated into it. There's coercion involved in that, and normally I would say the traffickers who are doing this are not signing agreements. I might be wrong. If there's people being accused of it and there's an agreement in place and lawyers have been involved, then love to see that.
Well, I'm looking at this because one of the things that has been in the media now for quite a few years is taking a look at individuals that have been accused of trafficking or accused of grooming, because grooming is not illegal, trafficking is illegal. But then you have other people who will platform people like Andrew Tate. And Sean is one of them. Sean has had him on. PBD had Andrew Tate on. A lot of people have had Andrew Tate on. I think Piers Morgan has had Andrew Tate on. All of these people uplift the conversation. And I'm trying to understand how, when we look at these influencers, because Sean Kelly's this is what he does, and you look at these people and they bring on people like Andrew Tate to have these conversations about women and women's rights and that they're not doing anything wrong. How can we look at them and look at someone like Andrew Tate and go, yeah, there's nothing wrong there at all?
Because part of what a groomer does now, Andrew Tate's been accused of a number of sex crimes, including human trafficking, all allegations, obviously. He enjoys a bit of court time himself, especially with people that can't afford to go to court. In fact, I did hear recently about him going after one of the young girls who was groomed in the grooming gangs in the UK. She was 5 years old when she started being raped in the UK, and he actually went after her with them in the most disgusting way because she dared comment on some of the things that he's all said himself. It's, just another layer to his abuse and manipulation. But they're very, very good at manipulation. And when you're looking at groomers are not just grooming the individual. When we're looking at child groomers, for example, they're grooming the parents, they're grooming the teachers, the aunties, uncles, anyone who's around them. They're grooming everyone. So he says some very, very, very good points about politics, about government, about things that people care about that are really important. And what will happen is the person will say, just like with Trump, people can blindly follow someone and say, well, this guy's amazing, he's done such amazing things, so we must blindly follow everything he says. And then when they do give him a platform, and for some reason, I don't know why, Piers Morgan, Owen, all these people that are platforming them are not asking these questions. And it's very, very, even with like people like Benny Johnson and things, why are you not asking the questions that are important? And for me, Kelsi, how I like to deal with things. And is Andrew Tate a bad person? I don't know. I don't know him. I don't know why he does what he does. I don't know why he's so angry all the time. I don't know why he believes that this is the only way that it is possible to be with a woman in this kind of abusive manner. But I want to go into the nitty-gritty of it, because I don't think there's either a complete lack of understanding of the law, a complete disregard of understanding for the law, or he's just playing a game. And it's a very, very, very dangerous game because everyone's being hurt. It's not just the girls that are throwing their lives into this situation that's, going to be with them forever, that they're appearing on webcams and they're doing these things. The young boys that he's convincing, he might believe he is powerful and strong and control everything that he does, but these young boys are very, very vulnerable, and they're being convinced into a situation. They're looking up to someone who they're believing has all this power and influence and knowledge and money and fame. They want that, so this is how we do it. We're teaching boys that being aggressive with girls is the only way to go. The only thing useful for girls is to be selling their body. If they don't sell their body, then they're not loving towards them. So this is what young boys are hearing every day. And the questions just don't seem to be getting asked. And the only reason I can think of is because of this kind of attachment to a certain political movement or a way of the world right now. But his manifesto, his 101, his own website teaches every step of grooming, which is the stages that
Andrew Tate's?
Andrew Tate. So in the world of human trafficking now, I think we've seen a lot of movies. We've seen The Sound of Freedom. We've seen all these movies that are saying, like, you know, kidnap in the back of a van, all this kind of stuff that's going on. 99% of kids that go missing or trafficked or are taken by someone they know. It's done by the process of grooming. So less than 1% is a complete stranger abduction. So we're basically finding the victim. The victims are not, and a lot of people say that the poverty, that creates the vulnerability. It's the socioeconomics is important, but are they isolated? I speak to many people in wealthy households that's children have been groomed. It's not. It's the isolation. It's the vulnerability. So we pick the victim. We're looking to secure their trust. We're looking to satisfy needs. We're looking to isolate them, seclude them from their family, make it so that they're only trusting you, they're only listening to you. Slowly bringing in sexualization of it without actually involving sex. Maybe just like desensitizing certain words or using certain phrases that become almost natural, to the point that you've got complete control, complete supremacy over this person. Then we're going to move on to the abuse, the sexual aspect of it. But in everything that I just said beforehand, in most of the world, this is legal. Until the sexual contact actually happens, it's completely legal to groom a child. Even with police knowing what they're up to, it can be very, very difficult. So the stages that Tate teaches on his war rooms and various things are about the stages of grooming. And then we go on to where the trafficking occurs. So is he paying these girls? I mean, again, this is all for the courts to decide on how, if that is classed as trafficking, if it's classed as rape, that's for them to decide. But if we could take stronger action on what grooming is, then these types of things can be stopped in the first place. And maybe he can realize that this is wrong. I mean, I don't know. You know me, I like to give people a bit of a benefit of a doubt. But and I feel like that's where, if I was Pierce, if I was the people that are interviewing them, if you could make him understand that, why do you feel like, because you're very critical of women sometimes, but when we're now creating generations of people that are going to believe that this is the way to make the money, surely a successful man can find a way to make a money that doesn't involve exploitation of women.
I mean, you would think that, but then that brings me to my most recent new favorite thing to do, which is expose people like Andy Elliott for using their kids for clicks. When you use your children for clicks, we're talking about something different. You can't sit there and tell me that people can't go make money other places. And they do. But then when you start to realize that the internet pays attention when you put your children in your things, there's real problems here. You can't tell me that people aren't noticing algorithms and what spikes. You can't tell me that these people who make money other places should need to exploit individuals around them. Yet this is the behavior that we see left, right, and center. And that brings me to what I was just pulling up, which is, I don't know if you recently had seen, there is a Netflix series that came out this April called Bad Influence. Did you see this one at all?
I started watching it.
Yeah, so it's about Piper Rockwell's world, which is the manager mother was Tiffany Smith, and it was about YouTube coming up and these kid influencers, and it really paints a picture of something a lot more sinister than, say, child influencers. It brings up this management style of coercion and manipulation in order to keep kids producing high funds for these parents at a young age. And to me, when I look at those things, that feels like the pimping style of things. That doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right with me. And I mean, when you look at the only income coming in from these parents or these people or people like Andrew Tate, if it's coming from a coercive type behavior and they're not understanding that this is wrong, it makes me want to look at their childhoods and go, what was done to you to make you think that this behavior is acceptable?
Yeah, and I think, like, back to what you were saying about the misunderstand. Let's go benefit of the doubt and say that these people are not understanding that putting their kids on the internet is putting them at risk.
Right.
I personally have dealt with cases where we've had high follow and influence children whose parents manage accounts, who have been approached by their stalkers, who have been able to find their house and come up to their house. Who's been, these kids are out there for the world to see. And often, usually, what I can do is when I can go into, as you know, what I do is OSINT for my actual job. I can go into the background and I can usually find out really quickly where they live, what schools they go to, where they hang out, what time they hang out there, and even a lot of them have got open public accounts where you can see where they are at any time too. If you look into a lot of ask your kid tonight for a look at their phone and their Snapchat locations, and you'll be able to see where all their friends are around. It's pretty crazy. But in the influencer world, I think it comes back to that convenient logic. Well, if they're looking at my kids and they're seeing anything other than a really strong six-pack, etc., on a child, then they're the sick ones. Yeah, that's right. They are the sick ones. They are very, very sick to be looking at that and thinking of anything other than a beautiful young child. But that is the world that you're putting them out into. Yes, right. Me and you are looking at that image going, that's a father who works out a lot with their kids, and we can see it like that. But we can also see that there's also 9 million people looking at it. There's also a huge amount of probably income coming from that. And that huge amount of that, I think one of the very young influencers that I looked at with high volume of followers, their followers were all male over 40 for a 10-year-old girl. So yes, the eyes that are looking at it going, this is wrong.
Yeah.
You can say that there's something wrong with them, but it's not. We're just very, very aware of who's looking at your child. And what we're saying is, as a parent, you want to, even just putting a simple image on now is being corrupted by AI. We're able to you can make a whole porn movie out of the face of a child now just by having that one image. And it's like, how much can we do to stop this happening? Yeah, we could say, like, let's just not allow them on the internet, let's just not put pictures up, but also having that autonomy for your own self. My daughter, there's a couple of images on my Instagram of her. We have that conversation. Is that okay to put that on? And I'm telling you right now, if she's not happy with it, it'll come off in a second. A family picture here, something there, but when it is one, the more that you can show of the body, the more that they can manipulate those images. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you've got a kid in a bikini or a kid in like very little clothing, they don't do much manipulating because the innocence is already there and they're quite happy with what that image is. Those images go onto the dark web faster than you can even think about doing anything to protect that. And for the likes of Andy Elliott's images and things, those are already in the dark web. And that to me as a parent, I feel like that should worry someone. And the other part of it is, and again, I'm not a tech expert, this isn't my full region completely, but I know from my colleagues that I work with and what they tell me, when you're putting things like captions like 12-year-old girl or 9, that attracts it instantly. So you're almost pulling those types. The people that are searching for 12-year-old girls are definitely not the people you want to be looking at your kids. So when that image has that as a caption, you're attracting them even further. And yes, you're going to make a lot of money out of it, but
and brought to you by Ketone IQ. If you guys have not heard or seen me drinking these little bottles right here, you have been missing out. These guys right here are single-handedly the biggest part of my routine. Outside of the functional mushrooms, the movement, the sleep, the hydration, Ketone IQ is a #1 most important tool that I use in my toolbox. And let me tell you why. If you guys have never experienced runner's high, give this a try. That flow state, it is for real. Ketones are a uniquely powerful macronutrient that can cross the blood-brain barrier, and they increase the brain energy efficiency. And every time you take a Ketone IQ, you're going to notice the radical boost in performance, endurance, and just focus in general. For me, I use this when I road bike, when I run. As a mother, instead of using caffeine after 12 o'clock, I go and grab a ketone. More importantly, I use it before I podcast, before I do keynotes or anything important in my life. You will see a ketone in my bag, on the table, or anywhere near me. So do yourself a favor. Once you're done listening to this awesome episode of the Kelsi Sheren Perspective. Go on over to the website partner.ketone.com/Kelsi. You're going to save, go grab yourself a subscription so you never miss out and you always have the energy you need. Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Row Nutrition. If you guys have not heard of them, please stop what you're doing right now. Go over to their website at Row Nutrition and take a look, because you guys know more than ever, I care so deeply about my mental well-being, my physical, and my TBIs. I do everything I can to look after my body, whether that's cold plunge, ketones, or otherwise. But Row Nutrition is my newest additive, and I have to tell you, I am feeling like money. Let's talk about it. If you're struggling with brain fog, you are slower to recover at times, and you're feeling more down, even if you feel like you're doing everything right, like I was doing, this is what you need. Let's talk about why. The reality is, when you hit your 30s, I'm going on 36, your body's NAD levels, a critical molecule that fuels your energy, recovery, and brain clarity, they drop by half, nearly half. No wonder we're all burnt out. And that's exactly why I partner with them. They use a liposomal NAD. And let me be completely straight up with you and honest, it's incredible. Normally, you need to go and get NAD IVs for this result, but not with Row. I am experiencing sustained clean energy, sharper focus, which we all need, and faster recovery. I don't have any jitters. I don't have any crashes. And this is an energy like others that keep me performing my best. It's critical. Let's talk about NAD in general. It fuels your mitochondria. If you guys don't remember high school science, that's what we're talking about. That is the powerhouses in your cells responsible for your energy and clarity. And like I said before, the only real way to get it before was really expensive, uncomfortable, which I've done, IV treatments. But Row Nutrition has completely changed the game with their new technology. No needles, no downtime, just maximum absorption and results. I have felt the change, and you guys know I only use products that I actually use. So I want you guys to go and give this one a try. It's risk-free. So it is backed by their 60-day money-back guarantee. And I believe in this enough to give you guys 20% off. So go head over to rownutrition.com/discount/Kelsi20 and use your code Kelsi20 at checkout. Now, the one thing I want you to understand is that when you do this, you're not just doing this for you. You're doing this for everyone else around you, because when you feel good, others around you start to feel just as good as well. So go check them out.
Is that the money you want to make?
Well, and I have no problem coming at Andy Elliott. He's made it very clear that I've obviously set him off because he's blocked me on every platform. He obviously doesn't understand how the internet works, that we can still see everything. I have still have access to all of it, and recently has put videos basically calling, he will never call me out because that would require actual integrity to say my name out of his mouth, but he won't do that. So what he does is he makes these videos after the internet. I mean, they're the video that I originally, for those that listen to the show or know me from other places, or you who know me very well and in depth, I don't attack people online. I'm not a big throw rocks, glass house kind of person. People come at me online all the time, but I will go out of my lane when I see something that I can see is very obviously disgusting. And because, and for those of you who don't know, let me digress real quickly. A couple weeks ago, I took it upon myself after seeing a video with over 10 million views, by the way, when that person's average video count was maybe 250,000 if you were lucky, decided to put a video asking, not really asking, more like demanding, in a stadium filled with grown men, which his audience is, by the way, all men. He has been a sales guy. He is known for firing employees who don't have six packs, bringing in sales teams and abusing them if they're not, if they're slightly overweight, making them take their shirt off in front of public and demeaning them, because that's how you get people to do things you want. And then has a really amazing wife. So I don't know how she stands by and allows this, who she has not blocked me yet either. So that's cute. But what he does just recently, when you see his views aren't necessarily getting what he wants, he started putting his children in stuff. So this video I did, where I covered his kids because I think that was the right thing to do, paraded his 9-year-old and 12-year-old little girls in Lululemon shorts, smaller. If you're just listening, think of a iPod case, something about that big, and then asked them in front of a stadium, again, standing, which was wild to me, beside David Goggins, which was a little shock to me that he didn't stand up and say something, said, hey girls, can you take your shirts off and show everyone your six packs? Now, when you look at the face of the 12-year-old looking at her father going, really, you want me to do that in front of a bunch of grown men? I've always understood, having people who have been gang representatives, who are in the police departments, who individuals I know work in sex trafficking in the police, always say, when you look to the adult for, is this okay? And the adult goes, yep, do it anyway. You are setting a message in a young prepubescent child's mind that it's okay to take your clothes off in front of groups of men because dad said it's okay. And when people come at me and say that's sick, sadistic behavior, to suggest that he's using his children, I would then argue the next couple videos of just his little girls on the beach that are now going viral, who are, by the way, I didn't tell you, I went on the dark web and did my own searching and found those videos already. Don't sit there and tell me that I'm the sick one. I'm not the sick one. I'm the one that's just pointing out the insanity of a grown man's platform that has been built on the backs of only men over the age of 25 now for years.
And then I think that the other issue you're going to have there is because there's such a high platform there's such a high following, there's such a build-up of what he's done so far. Criticism can be hit really hard. Like, he can block you immediately if you're criticized. So, as I say, let's give him the benefit of the doubt that he doesn't understand and he doesn't realize. Then be educated, be open to being educated. There's things that I don't know about. I am, people will say Alana's a human trafficking expert. I hate that word because I'm learning every single day. I'm constantly learning new things, new platforms. I speak to my kids all the time and they're teaching me new things about the internet and how everything's working. But if you don't understand, then listen to the people that are telling you. Listen to the people that know that things like what you said there, your little girl looking shy and looking to you for reassurance, this is okay. And then when you say don't be shy, those words can stick. And remember that,
yes.
What's the movie, the little core memories? These are forming core memories. So the core memory there for that one, especially now that it's out there, it's being talked about, there's millions of people, that's a core memory there for her. That is her dad saying, take your shirt off, don't be shy. Now, for me, I would say to him that is building something that you don't want. Even with the strongest six-pack and the biggest, toughest body in the world, there's men out there that are going to prey. And you need to teach her that, yes, you can be shy. If you want to keep covered, you keep covered up. You don't want to take that talk. You can have that six-pack and you would be as proud as you want. Great job. You've done a great job in the gym. That's amazing. You don't need to show anybody. You don't need to tell anybody. You can tell them that your kids go to the gym with you every day and they work out and they're solid. We don't need to see it. You don't need to show people it. There's a great thing to be proud of, that the kids are as committed and all these things. But be a protector, be the person who's going to stop them from this. And protecting them isn't just keeping them safe, it's teaching them these things. Like, yes, be shy, yes, you don't need to be the good girl. Somebody tells you to do something, you do not need to do it. And we're taught way too much about being this nice, good, obedient girl. We don't want that. We need to be able to stand up and go, no, I'm not happy with this. The minute she looked uncomfortable, you'd be like, all right, guys, well, she looks amazing and she's done a great job. Let's give her, a round of applause. No, none of them need that.
Well, and that's it. And so, of course, because I'm not an idiot and I have multiple pages that other people don't know I have because of people like this who think they can get away with that behavior. You know how you know that you really set somebody off? When they do an entire clip expressing themselves, saying that, again, and he made sure to clip the girls again with their clothes off in it to get clicks, saying that we're bad people and that their dads are just trying to get them in shape. And I want to be an example. And he goes, I was fat and out of shape. And anybody want to hear me? We live in an era, okay, where people hate the truth. Andy Elliott, here's the truth. You're using your kids for clicks and we all called you on it and you don't fucking like it. Here's the reality. The 9-year-old, when she's down the road, has a grown man that says it's okay to take your clothes off in front of a camera because it's only a bunch of people. That's fine, right? Literally, it's not okay.
Yeah, and from what I would love to go into that, but again, it's this, you've already got to this rise, already got to this thing where your ego's being affected by the influence that you've got on the internet. Great job in coming away from that, same as what Goggins done, great job. But if you get to a stage in your life where you think you can't learn and you think you can't be be shown things like, do I think he's out there abusing his kids? God, I hope not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but
you're exposing them.
Exposing them, and you're not learning. You're not learning from, like, if somebody comes on and says, Alana, you know, what you've just said there about putting that family picture on is great, but actually here's some stats on that. I'd be like, fuck, okay, sorry, let me take that down, let me get that fixed.
Right.
We need to like drop our egos and learn, because the world is evolving faster than we can ever keep our little brains up to, and we have to be able to take criticism and learn from what other people know. Like Andy, I'm sure, could teach me a gazillion things about how to keep fit and maybe grow a six-pack and do all those things. Should I listen? Probably a little bit more. Do I? Maybe not. But he could do that. I could teach him about how to keep his kids safe on the internet, in person. Those little girls' faces are out there, and so many millions of people have seen it. So many, like what I was saying about the 99%, that 1% still exists. That 1% that grab off the street still exists. And we just want to keep them. And I'm not saying that we should wrap our kids in bubble wrap, but we also shouldn't put them out there for the strangest of people to see.
Well, it's not even about the strangest. Here's a perfect example of what you say, and then we can switch off the topic. But I think it's really important to press on this. And here's what's wild. I had probably about 50 special operators who know this person DM me after, being like, this guy's a fucking snake. And it's wild, because then some of them said something after I tagged them in some stuff. A good couple friends reposted because they were putting their money where their mouth is. But when you say something about hashtags, right, because people are going to be searching these things, I have a question because Andy Elliott will never actually have a real conversation. If you look at all of your clips right here, because remember, just because you block somebody doesn't mean I don't have access. So like, just remember that if that took me 2 seconds to get access to you again, think about how easy it is to get access to your children. So let's take a look. If your average video view, Alana, is 41,000, 86,000, 194, but the one where you put the screenshot of you with a little girl in a bathing suit has 10 million, okay? And then the other one you put, and the caption photo is your girl's half naked, and it says she's 12 years old. Are you really telling me that with a whole male audience is an educated way to move, and it's got 1.1? Don't tell me that you don't know what you're doing, because you're doing it for views. And now, the last video he posted of his little girls working out, the girls were in clothing smaller than this case, and the end freeze frame is on one of the daughters. And even I sent it to somebody, and they went, "Oh God, that's a bad angle. Oh no, oh no, that's bad." So anyway,
I'm going to go back to, does he understand? And if he doesn't, then be educated, learn. Don't take everything as like we're attacking you because we want to protect your kids. That's all. Like, it's not.
This isn't
just a protection.
Well, but again, people perceive things from their perception, right, and their lived experience, right? So if I'm saying to you what I think you're doing is wrong, he's going to go, well, you're a shitty parent because you just don't want my kids to be in shape. No, I'm the opposite. I was the 9-year-old. Hi, little humans.
Hi.
I was the 9-year-old, right, who was the athlete, who had the six-pack. But if I was ever asked to take my clothing off in front of men, my parents would have lost their minds. So if you don't want to act educated and you just want to throw stones and say that we're coming at you, we're not coming at you. We're telling you your kids' faces are already on the dark web, and what do you think they're being used for? And that only happened because you exposed them to the internet. And if you're okay with that, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like, just admit it then.
And if I can just end on one point on that, is I've had cases where with a girl with 0 followers, 0 famous families, 0 influence out there whatsoever, who have had one image that has ended up on the dark web, that's been recirculated, ended up in pornography networks, and it's taken us years to get that one image off. One image is taken years to get off. And to be quite frank, I don't think we're ever going to fully cleanse it out of there. What you're doing is going to, I don't like to use the word impossible, but it is going to be impossible to wipe those kids off of the sites that you 1000% don't want your kids on now.
And what scares me is if you're a public figure, it's not hard to really find where you are. It's not hard to find where your kids go to school. It's not I mean, for God's sakes, people still put bumper stickers, honored student, they're proud of their kids. And you should, I mean, but you should be able to. But the hard reality is we
It's
don't
just
live that way.
it's difficult to say it because everybody does say to me like, this isn't fair. We don't want to be living a life like
I
this.
hear you.
It sucks, and it sucks that there's so many bad people out there. And it's like, a lot of the time my dad will say to me, is it worse than what it was when we were growing up? Because, you know, we had the guy in the park who would flash us, or the, you know,
Yeah.
my dad got stuff when he was younger. And is it worse? Yeah, because things have changed. And it's like, when we used to have this one dude who had this terrible, terrible sick thoughts, and he was at home in his dodgy little apartment in Glasgow or something, like thinking these thoughts, and then maybe he would act out in it once, and then we'd be able to catch him, and then maybe he would even make some friend who's also feeling that same way. Well, now fast forward 20, 30 years, we've got forums, we've got groups, we've got registered 501c3s
Mm-hmm.
that promote pedophilia. We've got
Right.
all these different things that are saying it's okay. It's okay what you're doing. Like, if you believe that certain way, it's okay. Like, you're not a bad person if you think certain ways or you act in certain ways. And then we kind of perpetuate it and make everyone believe. So is it worse than it was 30 years ago? Hell yeah, because we've made it that way, and we've made it
Right.
okay to think certain things and behave in certain ways. And then we have like these affirmations through groups of like, I feel the exact same way, I see the same things. I was looking at one group the other day, again, registered 501c3, who believe that underage boys should be allowed to have sex with 60-year-old men. It's
Right.
a natural way of being, and that they don't understand why it's illegal. And it's a full association who have meetings. It's worldwide. It's a group. And this is out there. They have a website on the normal web, not even dark web, on the normal web, that exists because they have the freedom to be able to do that as long as they don't act on it while it's illegal, which I would very much love to question whether they're not acting on it.
Well, and that's what makes me concerned, because there are people like the TED platform who have platformed conversations called minor attracted persons. They've put them out on their educational YouTube as ways to, they say, educate. But when you have an individual who's advocating and stating that when you disown a type of people in society, it sends a stigma. And I'm a big believer that, and understanding that things like pedophilia are not things that can go away. There is no cure for pedophilia. Dr. Leslie Dobson talks about this all the time. She's a forensic and clinical psychologist, and she's honest about it. It's like, what do you do with a person who is into pedophilia and they haven't been, I want to say, proactive, whether that's gone out engaged in the explicit behavior, they haven't shared explicit material, they haven't participated in what would be considered illegal. What do you do with people like that? Well, when we normalize in a society that minor attracted persons, i.e., pedophiles, should be integrated into society, I argue if we continue to normalize this behavior, what do we expect to happen?
Mm-hmm. Normalize and accept. I think that what we're not only teaching them is that, very similar to a lot of the things that are going on in the world right now with severe mental health issues being patted on the head and saying it's okay, and actually we'll affirm it, and we'll make sure that what you're thinking right now will agree with you. So we're not going to go down that route because we'll be here forever, but we're not addressing it as a mental health issue. And you and I, Kelsi, have both worked within the plant medicine space, and one time we'll talk a little bit further about the work in this space, because I've been back and forth with a few people on whether taking people through medicine that are in this particular mindset. And I know of two instances, one trafficker, one paedophile, and it's very, very profound what comes out at the other side. So yeah, that mindset is there, and it's something scary, and what do we do and how do we deal with it? But I have seen where we can get to the root cause of it, because that most people are not born to be a predator. that this is kind of learned. There is a nature nurture argument, but most of them, something's happening to them and something's happening before, and how do we break that cycle and how do we stop what's going on? I speak to traffickers on a regular basis who have convinced themselves that these are commodities, very similar to what I was saying about Tate and things. They've convinced themselves into this convenient logic that this is a commodity and it's their commodity to use, and they're making money about what they're doing wrong. They're slipping them a few bucks now and then. What's wrong with that? And then when we really go into the deep part of it, they don't want to believe what the truth is, because you know that once you get into that and once the trauma starts to come out, it's a dark hole that they don't want to see into, and it takes a lot of work, and it'll take some very, very strong people. So I'm not saying we're writing them off completely and we should stick them all in I was about to say gas chambers there, but I can't say that.
That's aggressive. That's aggressive even for you. Damn. Listen, there was a case, I'll find the name of it, but there was a case of an individual who had led a completely normal life. He was a productive part of society. And then one day, all of a sudden, started expressing that he was feeling these feelings towards children, and he couldn't understand why. He went to his doctor about it and had these conversations. And it got to a point where he was like afraid. He was afraid because it's like, this is not normal behavior. And it turns out he had a tumor on his brain that was pushing on part of the prefrontal cortex. And it was pushing in an area where apparently the part of the brain around sexual pleasure and desire was. They removed that, and that went right away. But that's rare in any case.
But it's a very good point, actually, because part of any trauma, I guess, and a lot of people can experience it, is those intrusive thoughts about suicide or self-harm or hurting someone else, or people have extremes where they'll literally think about doing mass harm. There's these intrusive thoughts are coming because of TBIs, because of past trauma, because of these types of things. But if you had those intrusive thoughts and you were like, God, I really just thought about just going shooting up a school today, and then you went, oh my God, I had the same thought. What was your thought like? And then we really go into it, and then we meet another person, and they're like, yeah, I was thinking it too. And then we're like, we've just normalized that thought. And maybe I'm not weird. Maybe I've got now I've got a group of people who all want to do this, and we're maybe not the weird ones. They're the weird ones for not wanting to do it. And then it just becomes this thing. That's what we're doing by making it normal to have minor attractive persons in a group setting and talking about it and normalizing it to them, because all of a sudden it's not a weird intrusive thought, it's a thing that other people experience.
Well, and it's funny because this is, along the same vein, and I'm just going to preface with, we're not having this subject, but this conversation and this subject, and we can if you want to, but I actually just had an individual on the show. His episode, I think, is coming out in a couple weeks, and he's a Canadian dude, but he grew up in a very, very, very devout Islamic family. He's, again, Canadian East Coast dude. He speaks about this emphatically on his own. And we had this conversation, Ismail Yusuf. Okay. And so he was a former Muslim who actually converted to Christianity. We can talk about that, but he converted, he left. And I said to him, one of the conversations we were having was like, okay, they came over from, his family came over from Egypt. He married a Canadian woman. His mom converted, but only in, like, he said to me, it's like, mom converted to keep the family. She's not practicing. She wasn't wearing the hijab. She wasn't but he prayed 5 times a day. He was very devout. And I said, how did you decide to leave? What was that kind of marker of, this is not okay anymore for me? And he said, when I was 16 years old, I started reading and comparing the difference between Jesus and Muhammad, and started looking at some of these issues. And it hit me when he said that you could take a child bride at the age of 9. And he went, to marry a child at the age of 9 that's pedophilic behavior. That's to normalize abusing children, to be taking a child, to say that just because her body looks a certain way means that she is emotionally, mentally mature enough to then say, I want to be married to a 50-year-old man. And for people who have listened or don't, or have read the book, this is the Alana from the book, where we discuss things from Afghanistan. And one of the biggest things we saw post 2021 pullout was this massive uptick again of young girls being married off to older men, 50-year-older men taking wives at the age of 7, 8, and 9 years old, and that being normalized. And there's a culture that believes that kids should be able to be, once they have their first period, should be able to be considered women and to be married off to grown men. This is that same conversation.
Yeah. And again, we could probably do like a whole entire podcast about that, but that comes back to, Muhammad was married to a very powerful woman. Muhammad he worked for her. She was a very successful market trader, and he was her assistant effectively, and they fell in love, and she believed in healing the world. She used herbs to heal the world again, and she was very passionate about that. She was a very strong, very powerful woman, made her own money. He worked for her. That was the whole circumstance there. And when she passed away, he was devastated. He was heartbroken, but she was the one who brought him to God. She was the one who heard the messages with him and brought all these things. Then how did that get converted to let's cover them up and marry them at a ridiculously young age, and give them no rights and not let them look out of a window and not educate them and all these things? It's the same as what we've spoke about a million times with Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and we can go into that story as well. Again, it's a whole other podcast, but it's words have been manipulated and changed in order to satisfy a certain group of people. And I firmly believe that a lot of it is again, it's been manipulated and made up, and the people that were really important in these times were the women, and that was what they had to erase, that was what they had to change, and that's what they had to make different. And never in a million years would the side of it that I read, and anybody that does believe in love or mother nature and compassion, would they believe it's ever okay to harm a child. And what they do to these kids now is horrific.
Right. And I think the crux of the conversation up to this point is like very simple. I mean, this doesn't feel like rocket science, but yet it seems to need to be said. Any sort of exploitation of children at all should be an uncomfortable conversation. It should be looked at from that place of children's innocence should be protected. And like you said, part of the problem with the world we live in is you can't bubble wrap, you can't shrink wrap your children. It'll actually end up biting you later in life. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
We're meant to protect, we're meant to raise them, we're meant to give them all the tools that we can give, but often they're raised and often they're abused, and that could segue nicely into Puff Daddy. The way that he was raised and the way that he became, is that an excuse for who he is?
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Good Living. I am so excited to tell you about something that's become such a meaningful part of my wellness routine, Good Living. Now, this isn't any brand. This is actually a brand I know all of the owners behind. And let me tell you, their integrity, their dedication, and their quality is the real deal. Their microdosing and functional blends are crafted with intention, and you can feel it. Everything is tested and made to support you in tapping into your own rhythm. We're talking about blends for anxiety, depression and stress, ADHD, brain health, inflammation, sleep, and energy. Seriously, they have thought of everything possible. I know firsthand how much love they pour into every single product. So if you're ready to check them out and explore more, go to itsgoodliving.com. And trust me, it's a journey worth taking. That's itsgoodliving.com, itsgoodlivin.com. And make sure to use the code BRASS and get 20% off your first order today.
Possibly. But yeah, that's what happens when we don't look after our children.
Right. And that's part of my concern. I mean, you can look at things like Hollywood, and you can look at media, and you could look at young children that are exposed to the world too early. This is where I encourage people who use their kids to make money to go take a look at some of the people who were young children exposed to the world too early. Let me know how Amanda Bynes is doing. Has she put another heart tattoo on her face yet? I haven't seen. Can you take a look at some of these children who turned to drugs and alcohol to cope with the life that they were exposed to too early? And then you have people like Diddy. So let's talk about Diddy. That trial has been obviously breaking the internet everywhere. And, it's not just Diddy. There's so many other conversations that have been going on for years now about Epstein and the abuse and trafficking of children, yet no one's been held accountable for that yet. Nobody understands why. I don't know why we would hold ex-presidents and individuals accountable for trafficking, but here I am just asking the question, what happens to the people and where their lives start, where we think that this is acceptable behavior? For Diddy in particular, growing up the way he grew up, it may not be a shock, but just like anything else in our lives, just because it happened to you doesn't mean you have the right to do it to other people. Just because you have trauma doesn't mean you get to bleed all over everyone around you. At a certain point, you have to take accountability for your own life. But when you have yes individuals around you all the time saying, that's not weird. That's not weird at all. They're yes people. So can you talk to me a little bit about what you know with the Diddy trial and Cassie? Because she has been very brave in what she has done, and she has stood up against what most people would never do, which is somebody who not only abused her, filmed her, and had other people abuse her in front of him.
What she's done is incredible, and I think that she is she's had the support of her husband, but she's gone out there. And I think one of the things that he said the other day that really got me was Cassie saved Cassie. She done it. When you look at Twitter, which is just Twitter X, whatever it's called now, it's just vile, some of the things that are on there. And again, it's down to this misunderstanding. It's down to this belief that, well, she done it off her own back, she was willing, she was participating, she got paid a lot of money, all these kind of things. So to understand why we're here, I think you go all the way back. Again, I'll start with what you were saying there about the yes men surrounding you. In Hollywood, in this industry, you are just surrounded. Your lawyers, your accountants, your business people. It's all like yes, 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 because back to that management, they're all making a shit ton of money off of you. So they're wanting you to be out there doing as much as you can. And they're going to agree to absolutely everything you say. And every silly thing you say, they'll be like, you're absolutely right. It's like having some setting up ChatGPT algorithms to agree with everything you say. That's what's happening, and it's not healthy and it's not good for you. So that's happening there. He's out there and he's committing a lot of crimes over the years that are going largely unaccounted for. And he's just getting away with it more and more and more and more. He's getting away with it. So people have said, why now? Why is it happening now? So in 2022, November 2022, the ASA came out, the Adult Survivors Act in New York. It was a year-long act that allowed people to hold people accountable for crimes that they'd committed previously. A lot of people said that so if your viewers wanted to kind of connect it, it's the act that they used to be able to charge Trump with what they charged Trump with. So they said almost this act was used to be able to go after Trump. And because of it coming out, 3,000 cases came out with some quite high profile names, Diddy being one of them. So Casey used this to be able to go after him in a lawsuit for what she'd experienced while they were in a relationship. So the question being, why didn't she do it before she did? She tried. Ventura, for example, turned her case away. Ventura PD. There was, I believe, 60 lawsuits came out of that ASA, and of that 60, 30 of them had previously put charges to him that never happened. So this is poor law enforcement previously that were letting him away with multiple crimes. These crimes are like domestic violence, kidnapping, unlawful possession, all these, a list of crimes that he committed that could be very, very easily proved. If we've all seen the video, we've all seen the horrific image of her in the hotel room. This was a very, very easily provable crime that was committed against her, yet it wasn't given. So why did she go for a lawsuit? Because she wasn't getting justice elsewhere. She wasn't getting accountability elsewhere. So she goes after this lawsuit on, I believe, November 2023. Within 24 hours of her putting the lawsuit in, he settled for $20 million. With no fight, no question, no nothing. He settled immediately $20 million. Obviously, then the FBI see this and they say, we should be doing something. But
Right.
again, the statute of limitation on a lot of these, by the time, so this year process is now ended. Now the statute of limitation is gone on a lot of the crimes that can be committed. But federal crimes and sex trafficking crimes in RICO don't generally have a statute of limitation on them. So what they're then having to do is build a case around that. The difficult thing is when you read through the indictments, read through everything they've said, listen to it. When she's standing on that courtroom, it's incredible what she's saying, and the crimes that he's committed and the violence and the abuse and everything that's going on is unquestionable. But have they done enough to prove a trafficking or RICO case? The way that they're going for the RICO is because, so for RICO, you have to establish an organized crime network. And normally, like in a sex trafficking case, for example, we've got a trafficking network in LA. We're recruiting and trafficking girls within LA and across borders. Then we've got an FBI involvement, but then we've maybe got another unit of our traffickers working in Chicago who we're operating with. That's how we're getting then an organized crime network. We've got more than one person profiting from it, and we've got more. How they've done that with Diddy is they've said, well, he's got assistants, he's got chefs, he's got drivers, security, all these people that work for him. So then we can connect a RICO because more than one person is profiting from this empire.
Right.
It's a stretch. It's a stretch. And I think that the defense lawyers have got a lot to work with there. But it's been done before. They've managed it with like R. Kelly and things like that previously. And the same with the trafficking. The trafficking, again, is force, fraud, coercion. Act means purpose. And the word commercial sex has to be in there. Now, they've got commercial sex in because they've been paying for sex workers to come and
That's right.
do the acts. What they mean in trafficking is that you are basically, as we've just explained there, you're taking somebody in, force, fraud, or coercion, and making them do acts that then you're profiting from. That's not happening here, from what I've seen. There's a lot of abuse, and there's everything that he's doing is vile. And all of those crimes, by the way, all of those crimes together would be a life sentence.
Right.
So we could put him in jail for life. There's something bigger here that they want to get. And they want to connect it to sex trafficking. The reason that I have a slight issue with this is like, if we're having to stretch laws to make them fit, don't we need a change in law?
Right.
And we're doing this more than once. We've done this with R. Kelly. We've done it with Diddy. Like, so the definition of trafficking to me is they're still not quite connecting a dot there. There's still a little bit that needs to be done. And again, I'm saying like what he's done is vile, but is he profiting? I think maybe you could say that if there's other people coming to these freak-offs, these parties, if there's money being exchanged, if there's been, and it might not just be money, it can be anything that's for like, is there contracts, is there deals being done through record deals, any of these types of things by you coming, so you get to come to this party and then you'll sign a check for something or you'll do something. If they can connect something there that people are coming in and profiting from the abuse of these girls, then we've got a case for trafficking. But I haven't seen that yet, and that might come up still. But I think that this is the only way they felt like they could get the justice, because the law didn't allow them to do what they wanted to do. And I might be wrong. I'm not the FBI. I don't know how their minds have worked in this. I don't know why it took them till 2024 to do anything about it. I don't know why 30 other cases were just blatantly ignored over the years. It feels to me like it's almost like a little bit of vendetta rather than justice for victims.
When you look at police officers that are unwilling to report, I mean, I read through some of the transcripts where they talked about either the security officers at the hotel in particular who recorded the video just to show his wife, which I would then ask, what the fuck? But when you talk about the Ventura police unwilling to to move forward on things, is it not worth on some point going back and looking who those were reported to and going to those police to go and taking a look at their bank accounts and going, were you paid off? Can we not prove this? Should you not be removed from the job? Because you can't tell me that some of those police officers are not still on the job. They for sure are, but who are they taking money from?
I think that because of this, her bravery and what she's done and how she's managed to get this, and then now they're listening. Yeah, we should 100% be going back through all these people. Are they getting paid off? It's not unusual for cops to get paid off in these types of situations. How seriously are things being taken? I mean, I have literally watched domestic violence situations where the girl has been under serious threat and she's maybe fought back and he's ended up with maybe a mark, and they want to arrest her. They want to take her in because he's the one who's visibly scarred. Doesn't matter what she's been going through and the fact that she had to fight to get out of that. So then there's this, it's a lot of it comes down to the paperwork side of it. If we take it away from the Diddy case and just take it into the amount of crimes against women that go unchecked, is it down to paperwork? Is it down to a lack of understanding what a victim is? One of the biggest things I deal with when it comes to human trafficking, when I'm I have a law enforcement training program, and when I'm training them on what a trafficking victim is, what they originally believe to what I end up showing them is so far apart. We've watched all these movies yet again where the girls are like this quivering little victim in the corner. Please help me. Oh, you've rescued me. Like, take me in your arms and carry me out. That's not how it is. A trafficking victim is fighting. They're protecting their trafficker. They are arguing. They are vile. They are spitting at you. They're doing anything they can because they know what the consequences are of all this happening. So, and also a lot of the time they're completely brainwashed. Again, if we go back to the grooming side of it, they've been convinced that this person's love for the lover boy method, for example, he loves me. Like, I'm only doing this to help him. Like, we're going to
Right.
get married and have a family one day, but this is just a tough point. I'm having to sleep with 30 men a night just to, make sure we're all good. Like, they've fully been convinced that this is the way it is. And if you don't believe it can happen to you, I have seen it happen to every spectrum of the people. And have you ever been in a relationship where you look back and, God, why did I do that? Why did I behave like that? It's just a widened version of that. And it's done very, very manipulatively. Same as, I don't know, like, to look slightly off topic, but the amount of cases I deal with where people get scammed on the internet or give their money away. It's the same thing. You're being manipulated and coerced. It's just, and that, again, normally most of my clients on that side of it are men. They fall in love with this beautiful girl from Russia who just needs a little bit of money to help get her across, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, it can happen to anybody, and in these cases. So if I hear one more person tell me, why did she not just leave? She was in it for the money, all these types of things. It's bullshit. She was abused. Like, there's no doubt of that, and he should be in jail for a very, very, very long time for that abuse.
Well, and it doesn't seem like it stops at sexual abuse with Diddy. I mean, there is obviously manipulation, coercion. It seems like there's alleged racketeering. There's all of these, and then it gets a little more psychotic, and you hear about this often with the people that are around. And recently Pierce Morgan Pierce seems to be, he's got this new way of doing these panels that is just chaos. Essentially, people just scream at each other, for people from different walks of the world, where they yell. But he recently just had an individual on named Big Homie. And I don't know if you saw the clips about him, but what a name, right? I mean, he's a big homie. He's a big dude. It makes sense. But he's talked about how he was around Diddy all the time. He had been poisoned 3 times already. And and his vehicle has been hit several times on the way to go do interviews and expose things about this by cars that were blacked out with no license plates. And there are real things that are happening to the individuals that have been in the circles or the area of Diddy where people are coming forward to say these things, and all of a sudden people are disappearing.
Well, because he's built an empire and is out there shooting people or doing these things, I'm doubting that very, very much. Is there people around them that basically built their lives on him, and that if he falls, they all fall? Is there people that, like, were at some of these parties that maybe don't want to be known that they were at the parties? Is there people that exactly what we were saying earlier about the management side of things? I prefer to build my empire on what I can do, not how much I can abuse other people. But this is the thing. His empire has been built around a lot of people are making a hell of a lot of money off of what he does. And if somebody tries to take that down, then they're going to have a target on their head, and it might not be directly from him. It might be anybody that could be associated could be saying like this needs to go away. And they do all live in kind of this Hollywood world of gangster, and we can just do whatever we want and we're in control. And if you've got a police force who's under incredible pressure, I mean, if you look at LA, for example, the amount of the workload of these people and how underpaid they are, and if you look at the LAPD stalking division, for example, like they can't do it. Celebrities that are being stalked are having to outsource to private companies and investigators because the police just can't handle the caseload. I mean, I had one just yesterday where a child's life had been threatened, and sexual assault had been threatened on a child, and they still haven't acted on that case because their workload's just too big, and it's just maybe not that important to them. I don't know. But it's a crazy world that people are getting away with so many things. And I don't know, as I say, I don't know who opened the file, I don't know who started this, but I believe that it was started because it was like, oh, for fuck's sake, how are we ever going to get this guy? We need to find a charge. It worked with R. Kelly, let's do it again.
Well, it seems like it doesn't, he's not getting out. I think regardless, there's going to be a charge that'll come down that'll hold him regardless. But it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal though, because it's still happening. We're still not hearing about Epstein. We're still not knowing everything about Diddy. Certain files are going to be sealed and closed. It's the same with some of the royal family. Those people are not being held accountable, and now the major accuser just died. It's like, how do you as a victim or an individual who has been taken advantage of not look at those things and go, what's the point? What's the point of me coming forward? Nothing, especially if it's an individual of some form of influence or power play happening here. I mean, we see it in the military. We see it with individuals and their people underneath them. How does somebody actually come forward if the reality is most of the time the system finds a way to get these people away with it?
I fully agree. And I was speaking to a trafficking survivor a few months back in a Midwest town, and she'd been asked that question, and she goes, they asked me, why didn't I report it? And she was like, who do I report it to? Because my customers were judges, they were policemen, they were politicians, they were prosecutors. She was like, who do you say that I should report this to? And it's that on a wider scale, like how can we take them down when it's the people that are in power that are committing the crimes? And the crimes are committed not just in some sadistic sexual fantasy way. This is huge. Remember, $250 billion a year is a huge industry when it comes to sex trafficking. And then when we add the amount of money that can be laundered through these types of things. So trafficking can be done again through the sex crimes. But if we look at the 324,000 kids that went missing across the border, where did they stay? They were housed in detention centers. Who builds those detention centers? Who's the construction companies that are profiting? Who makes the bed? Wayfair got the bed contract, by the way, for that.
Ooh, Wayfair, what are we doing?
So there's a huge amount of profit to be made. More importantly, money that can be laundered. Remember, I don't even know the pound amount number, but it is in the quadrillions of dollars of cash floating around the world right now that has not made its way into the system yet. And if we go crypto or we change that and we can't use cash anymore, all that money just disappears. So we need to get that into the system. Quickest way to get that into the system, building institutions. How do we build institutions? By filling them. So all of a sudden, places like El Salvador is going to have huge prison systems filled with gang members. That we're now able to filter a lot of money through that system. So it's an international corruption that scales. Remember, human trafficking funds wars, terrorism, drugs, guns. It does all the things that's bad in the world. And if we can turn a blind eye to trafficking, then we're turning a blind eye to all that.
Well, and that's what I think most individuals don't understand, is that it starts somewhere, and it's not always like the individual, someone's being held in a room. There can be other types of trafficking that I wish more people would understand. Like if you say, for example, hire a nanny, this happens in Canada all the time. All of the nannies are from everywhere but Canada. It's very rare that you see a Canadian white nanny or a Canadian black nanny. You see people from India and Pakistan, and you see people from other places like, oh my God, why am I totally spacing on this right now? The Philippines. You see them brought over, and not everyone is treated that well. Some people are not paid at all. Some people's passports are held. Some people can't leave. And there is a different form of abuse that happens that is still a trafficking violation.
And yeah, so I mean, to close off Diddy, I would say that as well, that the other reason that we will have this case, and it'll show, because it's a high profile case of sex trafficking. So if I said to you, give me cases of sex trafficking, you're going to go Diddy, you're going to go Epstein, you're going to go R. Kelly.
Right.
But that to me is being manipulated so that we're like, oh, it is happening and we're doing something about it. We're not doing
We're
anything
not.
about it.
No.
And 100%, as you say, and we can talk, if I take just Orange County, for example, where I live in California, the labor abuses, the labor trafficking that goes on here is just kind of normal. It's just very, very normal to underpay staff. If we take au pairs as an example, I hear people talk, oh, are you paying like a full wage for a nanny? I get an au pair and I pay her like $50 a week.
Woo!
Like,
that's slavery.
Okay, are we proud of this? Yeah, but she gets to stay in the house and she can have as much food as she wants. That's slavery. That, like, just because
That's
her and let her live in the house. There's a minimum living wage for a reason in every country that you live in, and if you're not paying that person that minimum living wage, then that is slavery. And it's au pair work becomes an easy way around it, because they're getting to go to another country, they're agreeing. The contract's being signed again, so they're agreeing to that minimum wage. But then they're like working 7 days a week. There is contracts within au pairs that they have to have days off, and there is certain things that they're meant to adhere to. But if they don't adhere to it, then they have to leave the country. So the au pair's not reporting the stuff that's going on because they want to stay where they are. But then also it's the accountability, and you know, I have this thing that I talk about, which is one person 1 month can change the world. And it's that if we do something good to two people, if you went out today and done something good to two people and asked those two people to do that good thing to another two people, etc., 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 it would take 1 month to put that through the whole entire world. 33 days it would take. And it's like, if we don't take accountability within ourselves and decide how we're going to change the world. So if you're saying, well, I'm getting a really good deal by just paying this person $100 to like clean my house all day, every day, and work 12 hours a day and work 6 days a week, you are part of the problem. Like, you can take accountability and go, do you know what? It's wrong. I can't pay this person a wage that, you know, if you look at Orange County, most of the people that work here can't live here. They have to go and live in Riverside, or they have to live somewhere else because they can't afford to live here. They can't afford to live here because they're not paid anywhere near enough money to do the work that they're doing. And I've seen little group chats, and I've ended these on my group chat. I'm sorry, but I'm appalled by you when I hear it. And they almost like joke between each other about how much they pay their nannies and their cleaners and their gardeners. And when somebody asked on one of the chats I was on for a pay rise of $20, been with them for 4 years, they'd asked for a pay rise, and they said they were getting rid of that person for daring to ask for a pay rise. And you know, I'm just like, I just want to bitch slap every one of them here, because the funny thing about it is none of them can do their own garden or clean their own house or do their own thing.
Right.
And when they talk, a lot of them can be very, very passionate Trump supporters. And in particular about the mass exodus of getting rid of people from here.
The deportation.
Yeah. And it does make me laugh, because I think, what are you going to do? Who's going to change your light bulb for you now? You know, just there isn't anybody to do it. And not that I'm saying I don't agree with people. I came here the right way. You know, I spent a hell of a lot of money for me and my family to be here, and I massively appreciate being here, and I love what I've done for my family. But I do understand that there's other people that maybe never got their paperwork sorted. You know, they've been here 25 years, 30 years, and never got their paperwork sorted. And I know of this through more than just, you know, maybe people coming across the Mexican border. I've heard of it with high prominent figures whose family have maybe never got their paperwork sorted correctly. Like, there's different ways to do this. And I think that it just becomes we're not understanding exactly what labor is, how much it costs, what we should be paying, how we can change the world. I went into a huge tangent there, but what I'm saying is that you can make the difference. That you if you just take accountability within yourself, and if you look at the people in your life and you're actually not treating them that well, if you're abusing the fact that somebody will work for $100 a day for you, don't do it. Pay them properly.
Well, you're not only a part of the problem, you're perpetuating the problem, and you are teaching others around you that that's acceptable behavior. But then when you have these groups that, like, this goes back to the very beginning of the conversation. If you have somebody saying, I'm attracted to people, and then another person says, oh, me too. And then the other person says, no, me too. And this person's like, oh, I only pay my nanny this. And they're like, oh, no, me too. And oh, no, me too. And oh, no, me too. God, wouldn't it be a shame if that was group chats with names and famous faces all of a sudden just showed up on the internet to show what they're really like behind closed doors? Because I think that's the thing most people don't understand is the average person obviously doesn't want to traffic anyone or be a part of the problem. They can be uneducated, they could not know. But if somebody's saying out loud and the other person is kind of going along with it, they're just as bad. And it's, I have friends of mine that are police officers that have private Instagrams with their children all over them. And I'm like, know better, do better.
Yeah.
Like, I can see the park you were at because the sign's behind
Yeah.
them. Like,
And a
why
lot of
are
it
we
is
acting
just
this way?
a lot of it, as I say, I come back to that. I try to like give everybody the benefit of the doubt and just say they haven't had the correct knowledge or education. And it's like exact same thing. If you're going to get your beautiful nails done and get a manicure and you're there for an hour and it costs you $15 to get it done or something, then there's something wrong there. You're going, I've got a great deal and my beautiful nails are amazing. But use your mind. You go further. Like, how is she being paid? Because the guy owns a salon and he's there, and then they've got like how does that work? How
Right.
we can use our brains, we can switch it on and go, that's not the maths isn't math in there, so something's not right there. And
Right.
that's just an open eye, seeing the world and seeing that when things aren't right, then let's question it.
Well, and I think it's important, especially for people to understand that this is not always in like major systems. Like you said, it's nail people, it's hair techs, it's nannies, it's cleaners, it's cooks, it's kind of everywhere. And recently somebody had posted a video of this area in California that was building like a massive amount of homes all at one time. So it was like a not townhouses, but like row homes type thing. And ICE had just run through there 2 days before. And there wasn't one single employee building anymore. The entire area was a ghost town. And they said, who's going to build your homes now?
I think it would be a really interesting experiment to every single person who crosses the border for work here to just stop working for a day and just
And
see
see what
how
happens.
California goes.
I mean, California would just dead stop. Everything around it would stop. But then you would kind of give away the fact that you're undocumented, you came in illegally. And there was, there's really sad cases, don't get me wrong, of people, like there was a couple of videos that went viral of this mother, this wife and husband, much older, where at a grocery store, he came out, ICE grabbed her husband. She goes, we've been here for 30 years. That's, you're taking from his father. And then I kind of go, and I actually use you as an example quite frequently. I go to myself, okay, but you came in wrong. But you came in wrong.
Yeah.
Do it right.
Yeah. And I get that, but I also get that it was such a hard process. Like, that I was
Oh, I remember.
like all the things that I went through. It was a really, really hard process to get here, and an expensive process. I mean, we're probably like $100,000 down just getting through all the things that we've done to get here, and we're blessed to be here, and we've got a green, and everything's good. But was there any point that I was like, and yeah, people would say to me, it's easier if you just came illegally, just hide for a few years and then you'll get your card. That to me didn't sit with me, and I fully get that. But when I do hear about how easy it was back then, how people used to come in and just work and they didn't need green cards and they didn't need visas and they didn't need these things. And then you do that for like 20 years and then all of a sudden like different presidents come in, different things. Oh shit, now I don't know what to do. Like, how do I get my paperwork? I've been here 20 years. I'm going to have to admit that I wasn't here right. Like, how do I do that? I don't think that's explained very well. And
No.
now it's just a case of leave. Well, where are you going? I heard a case of a young boy getting put to El Salvador. He'd never been there in his life. Like he was 6 months old when he came across here. But and yeah, his parents have got things to do there too. But like, how's he going to live a life in a place that he barely speaks the language? He doesn't know. It's difficult because that we live on like a one world thing. But then you do hear the stories that are on Fox News, etc., are the drug dealer who came across, the trafficker who came
Yeah,
across,
the M13.
across, yeah, all the awful, awful stories that have happened. So we 1000% don't want that, but I also think that we have a huge problem here to deal with, regardless of who's coming across the border. And my concern with the border was the kids that were being taken.
Trafficked by the Biden administration that had no problem at all handing them over to Uncle Joe, who's also taken 4,000 other children, which is totally fine behavior.
Totally fine.
Well, the thing that got me, there was a case in particular, and this wasn't on Fox News or CNN or anything. This was just another one that a friend of mine had mentioned to me, that there was a little girl that came through that was maybe no more than 6 years old. And when they did the medical process with her, she had some upwards of like 30 different male DNA on her body. And we have to beg the question, if you're the medical examiner, you're the person that's doing that, you have to go and question, is this girl being trafficked? Not just blindly hand them over to somebody in Arizona whose address was attached. And are these people who have been handling this situation for the past 4, 8, whatever years you want to say, are we not willing to hold them accountable? Because at some point, I'm kind of sick and tired with I was just doing my job.
Well, and I mean, who do you hold them accountable to? Because there isn't,
right.
There's governments and and this is, I kind of, I'm a writer as well, so I've kind of wrote a TV series about it, because I was like, how do we fix this? And fictionally, I've fixed it. Fictionally, I can work out how to do it. And it's just down to that. When I was watching this happening, and this was before all the reports were coming out and people were talking about it, I'm like, hold on, they've just lost another 30,000, just openly telling you that they're losing 30,000 kids, that kids are coming across the border, and if they don't, if the sponsor that's picking them up, that's the family, doesn't have ID, they can sign an affidavit to say, I promise I'll look after the kid for you. California was one of the states that allowed that. And it was, then these kids are just gone. And nobody is giving a shit about them. And even now, like, Trump is in, but we need to fix it now. And I get that there's processes and everything, and I don't quite know who he's putting together to fix it. It's going to take more than just the people that are talking about it right now. And again, it comes back to that, and I don't want to go too deeply into this because I know our time's short, but there's groups of people that are We're Saving Children nonprofits out there, that are all of a sudden, and you'll see them right now. Keep your eyes open for this right now, because Trump and Musk and everybody else that have been doing the audits have pulled a lot of the funding for USAID. USAID money was going out of the US to organizations that were, saving kids abroad, just taking the human trafficking side of it. They're saving all these kids abroad. All this money is coming in. They're making a hell of a lot of money. You've seen them everywhere. They're in Cambodia. They're in Haiti. They're in all these countries saving kids, and, beautiful pictures of big burly men with kids in their arms, like doing all these rescues. All of a sudden, just watch, they're all going to be working on US soil now. All of a sudden, they're going to realize that there's a shit ton of trafficking going on in US soil. Do you think that's because they've just suddenly realized that we have
money is
problem here? Or is it because Trump is making sure the money stays here now, and they're not going to direct it out of the country where it was way easier to play with? Just watch. They'll all be working in America now.
Yeah, I do my best to block those people because I couldn't stand seeing their faces and lies anymore. But it's fine because the world is really finding out who most of them are and is doing that for me. So it's really great. But those are happening, and those are not small names. Those are people who actually listen to the show. A lot of you follow these people. A lot of you know who these people are. And a lot of you just actually support these people. So I'm just saying, like, if you're going to support people...
Not in a negative way, Kelsi, because you're seeing, here's a man saving a child's life that's being trafficked and sexually abused by all these different men. So of course you think you're going to support them. Of course you want to support them. But I would say, for anybody that you're going to support, anybody that you think that you want to, look at their 990s. 990s is a form that every single nonprofit has to submit, and it has all their financial data on it. Just, if you're going to support a nonprofit, go check out their 990s. How much are their staff being paid? How much are they given to management companies, media companies, all these different, look, it tells you everything on there. So if you want to know who you're supporting, go check that out. It's very easy to find.
Yeah, we have them. There's charity watchdogs all over. There's tons of platforms that go through them. That's how we were able to expose Dying with Dignity's taking funds from the government. That's how we're able to expose all of these. It's not hard. They're nonprofits. I mean, for God's sakes, Made House boasts about it on their own website. They doubled their donations in 1 year, which means they killed 2 times more people, but somehow that's okay to say. So it's all out there. It's all on their websites. They're blind, dumb, and dumb enough to just put it out there and go like, what's up?
Yeah. Or
It's not hard.
It's family offices, and it gets somebody to investigate that knows what they're doing, because a lot of the time maybe the salaries aren't that high, or
right.
Look at the management companies they're employing. I find management companies all the time that are owned by the CEOs, that are owned by the people that own, and the money gets filtered through. If you've got somebody who's running a nonprofit, who's living in a $10 million house, and the nonprofit's all they do, then ask some questions.
I mean, it's not that hard. People just do a little research. And saying that, I know we have a time constraint, my dear. I mean, let's do this again in another. I'd like to do this again after the Diddy trial's over. I think that's going to be a little bit of time, but I think that's going to be an interesting to watch the continual breakdown of what that looks like. And I'm cautiously optimistic. Although when Kash Patel came out and was like, Epstein for sure didn't kill himself, I'm like, yeah, totally believe that you're going to release all of those files now after you emphatically said that with your eyes about this big. Everyone believed you. I want to talk more about it.
I'll never kill myself, by the way, just putting it out there.
Oh, I know you won't. Just like I will never either, right? That's fine. It feels like at this point, which is a genuine, people will joke and be like, yeah, you guys are funny. Huh? It's like there's just subjects, there's just topics, people, places that when you start talking about it, it rattles cages and makes others very uncomfortable. And so we said it on our last episode, neither one of us have been suicidal, and we don't really plan to be. It's just
a disclaimer.
We should just put it on the bottom of all things. I'm gonna, maybe before I go do Tim Pool next week, I'll get a shirt made that says, I am not suicidal. I do not want made. And so if I get in a car accident, at least it's fucking clear. Anyway, it's unbelievable at this point, I'm telling you. Well, my dear, it's always fun to sit down with my best friend and rant about the globe's issues and people who are actually affecting change and making change. And for people that are looking for your services, because you do a lot of different things, whether it's security, whether it's saving humans, whether it's trafficking, whether it's writing, whether it's working with people like Netflix on your amazing project that you did. And I know you're an executive producer on Toughest Forces on Earth, which was a great series that, if you guys haven't seen, featured Alana's husband, Dean, or Ears, whatever you want to call him by. I prefer to call him Ears. I suggest you all start. Was an amazing one. And you are a powerhouse in every space. So how do people reach you, buy your book, support you, and potentially hire you?
Super easy, Kelsi. Just alanastott.com pretty much has everything on it. And then all the socials are Alana Stott. Stott, not...
There it is. It's Stott. It's fine. She's Scottish. We don't blame her. We love her. We don't blame her. It's how it works. And so for every single one of you that have been listening, please go check out all of the amazing sponsors that keep this show going, and go check out Alana's book. She's got a great children's series I highly recommend. And she is an incredible writer, which I'm encouraging her to get on Substack and start doing. Otherwise, her books are available on Amazon too. And they also, Dean has a book too, you guys can go and grab. But before you grab Dean's, why don't you go grab Alana's book? It is one that made me cry, which not a lot does. And I think it's one that needs to be heard and also turned into a movie. And if you guys have not gone and subscribed to the Spotify, don't worry about YouTube. We're banned there. So go over to Spotify, go check out the Substack. And if this one's a heavy one, uncomfortable one, do yourselves a favor, go call a loved one, let them know that they never ever need to end their lives. And most importantly, if they're going through something, that they can reach out and ask for help and support to get out of that. Otherwise, we will see you all next week.